Hello and welcome to Mofo RC Garage. Today we're going to talk about the double barrel shocks, or otherwise known telescoping shocks or telescopic shocks, anything like that. There is a name brand double barrel, I think, which is KMS maybe. Everyone's come to kind of refer them as double barrels because they have a barrel and another barrel, double barrels. Telescoping because, like a telescope, they grow longer and shrink shorter. So whether you call them telescoping shocks or double barrels or whatever you want to call them, they're pretty much the same thing. I do sell these on my website at www.moforc.com. They come in a package somewhat like this. It does come with 4 of the completed shocks already put together with some super stiff, well, not super stiff, but pretty firm silver colored springs. Then there is a medium bronze spring or brass colored spring in there, and then there's an extra lightweight black spring inside there. For the make of this video, I'm just going to leave them stock with the silver springs on there. These also exclusively from me do come with a shorter set of springs. I don't know if you can see it in there, for droop setups. So if you don't want to run this big giant spring, you can put this little short spring on it, and you can have you're basically sitting on the frame all the time, where you'll still have the flex you'll want, but you don't get this high center of gravity. You can also move these shocks around anywhere you want to try and get different angles to make it less tension. These are adjustable via this little tiny cogged thingy right here, the shock adjusting nut right there. Can't really see it very well in the video here, but there is a small collar right there you can turn to tighten them. When you get your double barrels and you're trying to set them up, you're real excited. You finally got them in the mail. You're going to go ahead and put them together. You're going to stick them on your truck, and you're going to have the coolest truck in the world with tons of flex, and extra capabilities. You're going to lose some capabilities. You're going to lose uphill climbing. When this is sitting like that and you start climbing up a hill, these shocks will unload and lift up, and then your whole rig will fall over backwards. To reduce that effect, I do sell limiting straps. You can buy them with the double barrels or telescoping shocks at the same time on the website. I have 4 different sizes. I have 41, 45, there's a 33, and a 37 as well. That is measured in millimeters. So you'll have to either use a tape measure and then just convert it. I think it's 26.4 millimeters per inch, I think. Or if you have a handy dandy fancy measuring tool like I do, you actually have millimeter measurements. The thing you'll want to do for measuring, if you want to use limiting straps to keep it from unloading, such as this, when you're going up a hill and falling over backwards, just figure out where you're going to mount them first off. Let me get this one right here, since this isn't all screwed together. So if this is on here, there, and you think that's maybe too much, you can install a limiting strap to bring it down lower of wherever you're going to want your actual stopping point to be, which still allows the mega amounts of flex side to side, but it stops the unloading effect, when going downhill or uphill from occurring. And what you'll do is you'll take one of these little limiting straps and you'll mount it pretty much wherever you can figure out to mount it. For this video, I'm just going to measure from this little bolt right here that mounts the lower link right here to this upper shock mount right here, and we'll just use that. Let's see, there's 30. If you wanted to run real low, the 33 would be right there. If you wanted the 37, that's about right there. 41 here, 45 there. So if you want basically full flex, 41 would be the way to go. If you just want them for looks, or if you have a real extreme angle, or if you're mounting it from here to here, just take your measuring point wherever you want to figure out where you want to mount those limiting straps, and you can mount them wherever you're going to mount them, and buy the length accordingly of where you're going to mount those. They have a little tiny hole on each end, which is kind of hard to see. There is a hole there, I promise. You may have to just jam the screw through right in the middle there to find the hole. These look pretty rough. They're 3D printed with a thermal polymer or something or other that is more related to rubber than it is plastic. It is plastic, but it looks and acts a lot more like rubber than it does of a plastic. They do have little stringies hanging off of them when you get them. Those you can just clip off, a pair of toenail clippers or scissors or a razor blade. You know, you can clean them up. Some of them are a little rougher looking than others when you get them. I don't have time to clean all those little burrs and strings and stuff off of them. Those will help counteract the unloading effect. They will pull it down, keep it where you want it, and then you'll still have your up and down travel, and you'll still have your side to side travel as much as you can get while, you know, not having it completely unload on you. You can also just buy, you know, these, figure out where you want to mount them. You could try and mount one like to the center diff, to the back of the tray or somewhere. If you just wanted to try to run one, you could loop it around, mount it somewhere, you know, whatever you want to try to do. And I may make just the center mount one too at some point. But the main purpose of this video is how to keep your double barrel style telescopic style shocks from binding up. A lot of people purchase these, they're real excited, they put them together, and then they don't get as much flex as they were thinking they were going to get because things bind up. They act real rough. You know, a lot of that's just playing with it on a bench, you know, and you can counteract that by just not playing with it and go drive it and make sure it all does work. But what I'm going to show you here is how I like to set these up to keep them from binding. So you can see right now, this shock that I left off is not touching the axle, and I have to push tension that direction to get it to touch the axle, where it's going to mount to. All four of them will do that because of the O-rings that are on here, and something I like to call angular tension. I don't know if that's an actual word, but that's what I'm going to call it. See, I can't even bend this farther than that. That's as far as this shock will go, and you can see the shaft is bending and the two barrels are not moving. So you get this tension, and then look, I'm pushing on it right now, it's not going up with that tension on it. It's very rough, gritty, does not move upwards in any sort of way, form, or fashion smoothly. And that will be something you're not going to want, and something you're going to think, oh, these are crap, these are junk. You know, why don't I get any flex? Why doesn't this work the way it's supposed to? You get frustrated, and you'll get mad, and you might take them off and go right back to your stock shocks, or, you know, throw them in the trash, or you'll write me a nasty email, or write whoever you bought them from a nasty email. So the best way to counteract this, there's two ways you can do it. One, after you put these completely together and you get it all screwed up, and let me go ahead and put that one on so I can show you. You get these all screwed up and screwed in and screwed on, and you think you're good to go, and you go try it and it runs terrible. And this is going to be kind of a goofy looking rig. Both of these are, because they have the silver springs on them, and they do not have any sort of extra mounting location. They're just mounted right to the shock tower and right to the lower mount, so they sit very tall. I also do have these little plates here for sale. They you can buy them from the double barrels, or you can find them on my website. They're called the V2 shock or V2 suspension upgrade. These will mount on here like, let's see if I can find the right side here. These will mount on here in the front, kind of like that. Gosh, it's hard to show. These will mount to the lower front ESC tray mount. There's a hole here in the middle that mounts to your body post, and then this hole right here will mount up into the front bumper screw, and then you can move these shocks kind of wherever you want to move them. There's also rear mounting locations for these. There's a rear one that looks like this. This is for the deadbolt. There's one for the deadbolt. There's one for the C10. And as a lot of you already know, the C10 is basically the same as the Jeep. The deadbolt is basically the same as the Betty. So these little things here, this one will mount in the back using the rear battery tray screw location, the rear bumper screw location, and there is a slightly bigger chamfered hole that will mount it right through where the body post goes in the back as well, right there. And that just gives you a whole lot more mounting options for where you want to put the double barrel. It lifts the shock up a little higher to bring your center of gravity down lower. Things like that. I do have those being manufactured. They might be here this week. I will have aluminum plates as well as aluminum flex plates. So keep your eye on the website for that. Those should be there hopefully this week. I'll get them in stock. Where's my little nut driver at? Here it is. So this nut driver is from Mofo RC as well as this tool here. These three tools come in a toolkit like so, with a little tray and a little stand, and you got the three most common, pretty much all the tools you'll need to take apart and put together your Scx24. There's a 1.5 millimeter driver, there's a 050 or 0.05 inch driver for the most standard screws, and there's a little 4 millimeter nut driver, which so far I've tested fits every single wheel out there. It's very thin walled. This is made out of aluminum. This whole shank here is aluminum. These are both high-speed steel, and they're titanium nitride coated. I'm going to put this wheel back on. And don't over tighten your wheel nuts. I'm going to always back them off just a little. You want them to be able to just, the wind blows on them and they move. Front and rear. You want that right there. I do have a video showing how to do that and talking a little more about that you can find as well. So now I've got these on, and they seem to do okay, but as you start to go from one side to the other, you can feel them binding up just a little bit, and you can feel the scraping of the two barrels coming together, and that's going to lead to actual bindage when you're climbing up hills, things like that. You know, I can feel it right there. I can feel it scraping and getting stuck right there. You probably can't see or feel it in the video that I hear, but I can definitely feel this crunching as I'm pushing it up. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it either. Probably not. Oh gosh, this one feels really bad. Can you hear that at all? Probably not. It feels like you're rubbing a couple rocks together when you're pushing on these. Now with the softer springs, it's going to be even more noticeable, and you're going to have more binding and less actual flex, which is why you bought these in the first place. So the way I set these up to make them a lot looser, you can see how easily this is to move around. When I do this, I don't feel anything. I don't hear any crunching noises. There's no feeling of grinding or binding or anything like that on this one. The only thing I did differently on this one is I left off the inner O-ring on here. Let me see if I can take that off and show you. These have two O-rings per brass ball. There's an outer one and an inner one. And let's see. Gosh, you really can't see it at all. So here is the outer here. There is no O-ring on the outer spot there where you could put an O-ring. Right here. Let's see if I can zoom in on that a little more. There is no O-ring on this outer end. The brass ball itself will keep this from will keep the shock from popping off. The brass ball has two ends on it. One is smaller than the other one. That will mount to the outside. The bigger end will always mount to the outside so that the shock cannot pull off of the actual ball mount. There is an O-ring on the inside. You can see it right there, kind of, maybe. There it is. There is an O-ring here and not an O-ring here. Now what this allows movement. This allows your angular rotation in the direction that, when you have both O-rings on, does not allow. And that keeps the shock from bending as your truck goes up and down and creating all that extra friction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one wheel off and show you. I went ahead and snug that up and show you what I'm talking about. You remember that first shock I showed you earlier? You could not get the shock to reach the lower mounting position without applying force to it. This one, however, you can see hangs right past that mount. And you can actually move this one in and out. You see that? See how I can move that in and out there? That keeps your what did I call it earlier? Angular, I forget now, angular force or torque or whatever you want to call it. It keeps that from happening where this tries to push up, but when your axle moves, the angle rotates this way. When your axle moves up and down, it's circular almost, because this has mounting points that make it move in and out as it's going up and down. With both O-rings on, this is not allowed to have its circular rotation that it wants. And it just wants to shove against basically a solid plate. It's trying to push that outward, and it cannot. So without those O-rings on there, this can rotate this way, and the shock is allowed to move inward and outward at the same time as it moves inward and outward. I hope that helps everyone who's bought double barrels from anybody in the world. You know, if you bought them from me, I appreciate it. I hope that helps to kind of show you some of the easier, better ways to set it up. The easiest way to set it up is like I showed you there, which actually saves you a lot of time, because it's not easy putting all these O-rings on those little balls. So if you just get the get your shock here like so, and take your one little ball and take your one little O-ring instead of two O-rings. Take your one little ball, you put that in there, and then just put that O-ring on this side. Then your ball doesn't fall off and you don't lose it. So you get your little O-ring on there after shoving 10 million pounds of force against it to get it to go on. Boom. And now you have a little ball that can rotate side to side as well as rotate, you know, left and right or up and down or east and west. You get, you know, 360 rotation degrees this way, and you also get maybe 20 degrees this way. When you have both O-rings on there, you don't get any rotation at all. It's so stiff, the shock doesn't move left to right. So leave one O-ring off just for the sake of your own personal mental health. Leave one O-ring off, put it on there, get it all set up, get it where you want it, get it right, and you'll love it. You know, these are very smooth naturally. There's not a lot of friction in them. But when you turn them to the side, put any sort of weight on this, they start getting bound. And that's going to be the same for any of them. It'll be less so if you've got a plastic upper shock. There will be less friction in there, or if somebody ever makes one of these inner barrels out of plastic Delrin or nylon or something like that, there'll be less friction there too. But realistically, you don't need to have less friction as long as you have this mounted right. Just use the one O-ring. The other thing you can do, if you've already got yours already set up and on there, and you're wondering, you know, well, maybe this is what's going on with mine. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to take them all the way off to find out, you can just take these bolts, just loosen them a bit, you know, give it about a full turn, 3/4 of a turn, half turn, whatever. That's going to bring all that little outward angle out a little bit more and make them a little bit easier to move, because now they can actually slide a little bit this way or that way. You can do that as well, but I would definitely recommend just take one O-ring off. Take the it's harder to get them off and take the outer ring off once you've already got it on, but I would say that would probably be the better one to leave off. Would be the outer one. You could leave the inner one off, but every time you take this off, that little ball can fall out and you can lose it. So keep that in mind. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys are having a good Labor Day weekend. Try to enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I appreciate all the support you guys have given me so far. Thank you.